Welcome back. I am John P. Today we're going to be covering the Omega Speedmaster and why you should watch this video before buying an Omega Speedmaster in the year 2023. If you're new here, what we do is we talk about watches, the watch market, watch-related content. Thank you so much for coming back for another year here, 2023. Very excited to see what the watch market brings us, including from Omega, which happens to have turned into a brand that I've taken a lot of interest in because they seem to really like the watch collectors. And today on the wrist actually is an Omega Seamaster GMT that I modified with Mickey hands that I found. Make sure to go over and check out my Instagram, The Real John P, where you can see more about this watch and other watches, as well as delraywatch.com, where we buy, sell, and trade watches. We've just doubled our inventory. We're very excited that we can offer the watches that you all know, love, and enjoy because you tell us all the time, and that's what we do, strive to deliver you the watches that you're looking for. So what's going on with the Omega Speedmaster? Well, interestingly enough, because of the whole watch market pullback, you saw Rolex, Patek Philippe, and a lot of the others, including the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, these hot, hype watches, they've come down in price, sometimes more than double they've come down in price, which is very interesting. We don't need to beat a dead horse on that, but what we should talk about is, interestingly enough, now is a phenomenal time to perhaps add a limited edition or a limited run Omega Speedmaster to your collection if you were looking to do so, but perhaps the prices on them climb just too high. That's something we saw over the last 3-4 years is a lot of Omega Speedmaster professionals really just jumped in price by sometimes a couple of times, but at least double if you want to start thinking about watches like the Ed White and getting into some of the vintage Omega Speedmaster professional watches. So now we see a pullback. I'm going to be sharing here with you some Omega Speedmaster professional watches and why I think they all are a great time to get into them because the watch market could change. They can go up in price. So now at least if you're going to wear and enjoy and love the watch, you're at least getting a much better deal than you would have just truly a few months ago. And some of these watches on this list I think are actually quite surprising. So the first watch is the Omega Speedmaster 321 modern version of the watch. Within the last few years, this features the iconic 321 movement from the Omega Speedmaster. This was a watch that was hailed to be just a phenomenal piece. We've had a few in the door at Del Rey Watch. The retail price on this is about $14,000, just north of that, but interestingly enough, you can find them pre-owned on the market now for about $1,000 over that retail price, not factoring in the sales tax depending on where you're at. And this is a watch that was easy selling over $20,000, especially when it came out. And this is truly a watch that was produced in very limited production numbers, and for that fine movement, I think it's a phenomenal deal. And this is likely, in my opinion, if you could choose any of the Omega Speedmasters out there modern to be a collectible, this would probably be it. So I think it's a phenomenal time to get into one of these. If you've been on the fence, maybe you didn't know it dropped so much in price. Now the next watch is the Omega Speedmaster Tintin. Yes, commemorating that classic cartoon figure. The Omega Speedmaster Tintin was selling over $20,000 US. We had some at Del Rey. Now you can find them listed for sale at $13,000, and likely you can probably get one under that, right? Because that's the list price, maybe haggle a little bit depending where you buy it. I think that is a great deal. Now, for just a Speedmaster professional, probably not. But if you like that design and you saw this high price and you were kind of, I don't want to do that too high of a price, now's a great time. The Tintin is much lower than it was just a handful of months ago. Now, next is the original Ed White, the vintage Speedmaster, the 105.003. For a while, this watch was kind of name your price, especially if it was in great condition. Now, you can find them for about $13,000 or $10,000 with the service dial. Of course, when you get into vintage, there's a lot of variations, subtleties, especially with the Speedmaster, different types of bezels, condition, dial, replacement hands, service hands, things like that. So we can't cover every aspect of that today, but if you really like that smaller form factor Omega Speedmaster, under the 40mm mark, whereas obviously the modern Speedmaster professionals are 42mm, I think now is a great time to get it, especially I do see vintage coming back in the future because these watches in vintage, they're not producing any more of them. So there truly is a fixed amount of the watches. As long as there's going to be more watch collectors, then it so should follow that the demand will go up at least to some degree. Next is the Alaska Project, the Omega Speedmaster Alaska Project. I love this watch, and it's one of the few white dial Speedmaster professionals that you can really purchase out there without it being from the Olympics collection. But nonetheless, this is a phenomenal watch. I love the design, and these were kind of a name your price for a while. Now what we have is the Alaska Project listed for maybe about $17,000. I've seen them out there. Definitely get one for 20, but for a while they were 25 and over, 25,000 US dollars. So once again, very limited supply of these. So I think if you're into collecting watches, now would be a great time to enter into an Alaska Project. Let's talk about the Omega Speedmaster Snoopys. Now there's basically 3 different Snoopys, right? You have the silver Snoopy, you have the blacked out, and then you have the modern Snoopy with kind of the motif on the case back, right? So you have the different Snoopy variations, and interestingly enough, the black dial Snoopy, you can get one for 17, and they used to be just north of 25, and that's just the list price once again. So the Snoopy Speedmasters, collectors love them. It's got that iconic pop culture reference with the Snoopy. Other brands have done Snoopy collaborations and Peanuts collaborations, but truly the Omega Speedmaster Snoopy is the one to have. So great deal on these. Get one while you can. And with this Snoopy, we have the silver Snoopy, right? Now you can get them for about 20 as well. They were 30. That is a considerable pullback in price. I know it's a Speedmaster Professional at the end of the day, so there's going to be collectors that say, well, it should really be, you know, whatever, $4,000, $5,000. Yes, but it's a unique example of the watch, and uniqueness should be commensurate with the demand as long as people like it and people love it. So now's a great time to get into this Snoopy as well. Now, another great Speedmaster Professional collection that I think is a great time to get one while you can is from the Tokyo Olympics. There's different variations of the watch, but specifically the one with the red bezel. This was over $10,000 within the last few years. Now, you could probably find one for about $6,000, $7,000 maybe. Sure, you have to look different parts of the world, maybe go into the marketplaces, the platforms, Chrono24, eBay. I know those places, you know, it can be a bit troubling to know, you know, kind of who you're dealing with. But if you work through that and lean on them to kind of protect you there, I think you can get a great deal on these Tokyo Speedmaster Professionals. They have a couple of, you know, 2-tone versions with the green. I love that one as well. And you have the blue variation, you have the red bezel and the white dial. And I think that when we're talking about Speedmaster Professionals and having colored versions of them, this is really the collection that we have to lean on for that true Speedmaster Professional size, shape, form, and function, whereas all the others out there that have interesting colorways of the Speedmaster Professional, for the most part, are not the Speedmaster Professional, actually, right? They might look like it, but it's not the Speedmaster Professional. It's Speedmaster 57, or it's a Speedmaster Coaxial, or it's in a large case size. So I think this one is one to look at, and get one of these now while you can, because I do believe that in the future, these are going to be really coveted for their interesting, unique colorways. And interestingly enough, one Speedmaster Professional series that I don't think is a great buy right now is from the Mission series, right? The Mission series is a couple decades old at this point. I personally owned one as one of my first watches, but the Speedmaster Mission series, they had a big kind of, what would you call it, a Halliburton case, if you will, stuffed with all these different basically NASA missions that had these Speedmaster watches that would commemorate those missions, the different missions in there, and they'd have a little emblem at the 9 o'clock register. You know, it'd have Apollo this, Apollo that, the Gemini, a bunch of others as well. And they all had that kind of medallion from that specific mission. If you bought the watches singular, some of them came singular, you could get them in this kind of Kevlar, I think that is the material, spacesuit-esque box, which is just so cool. But these watches, even though they're pretty plain with the exception of that emblem at the 9 o'clock, they've actually gone up maybe to 30 to 35% just in the last year and a half alone. I know because I keep tabs on this Missions collection. I like it for that nostalgic reason. For me, it kind of marks a period in my personal watch collecting history that I really liked, just getting into it. And I think it's interesting that, some of the more basic or plain versions seem to be actually going up for the Speedmaster Professional. Something interesting, thought I'd share that with you as well. But just talking about the standard modern day Omega Speedmaster Professional, the current version of the watch is actually pretty difficult to get at a discount. You used to be able to walk into an Omega boutique or at least an authorized dealer and get some discount on the Omega Speedmaster Professional, but there have been so many more people getting into watch collecting today, and the Omega Speedmaster Professional has built up a lot of steam and really made a name for itself, not only as a casual purchase for someone looking for a great watch, but also in the collecting community. The stock Speedmaster Professional current day version, it can be really hard pressed to get yourself a discount on one of these new pre-owned. Yes, you can still get a pretty good price on them, but I would say actually Omega's doing a phenomenal job at really controlling the pricing of their current day hot watch catalog. Think the Wave Dial Seamaster, think the ceramic bezel, of course, and also think the Speedmaster Professional. I think they're doing a great job from their perspective at holding back the discounts, which I think for them long-term will make the watches that you put in your collection from Omega retain value better, be more desirable, and potentially, leave you at least wanting to keep the watch more so in your collection long-term because it's a decent store of value. And that's something that I know a lot of collectors do look at, especially when it comes to kind of tinkering around, deciding what stays in the collection and what leaves. So, guys, this has been kind of my short list here of Omega Speedmaster Professionals that I think are great to look at right now, great to get into, especially if you've been on the fence. I'm really excited to see what Omega does with this collection into the future. It's iconic. We all know it, the Speedy Pro. What do you think about this? Leave that in the comments section below. Guys, please do not forget to check out delraywatch.com where we buy, sell, and trade, as well as my Instagram, The Real John P. Happy New Year, guys. We'll see you in the next video. You've been chatting with John P.